Hej och välkomna till dagens temalunch här på Human Gardening. Vi har ju som en policy att vi vill ge bort kunskap till vår omgivning och närområdet och så. Och idag så har vi lyckats att få tag i en riktig stjärna från Danmark. Lise Lotte Gluud som är professor i leversjukdomar. Och jag själv har ju haft en och du är frisk. Så det ska bli också intressant att se det från hennes synvinkel. Har ni problem med engelska och så kommer någon översätta bredvid eller sådär om det är någonting ni inte förstår. Men jag tror Lotte är väldigt tydlig och rak och hon är en keynote speaker around the world, vet jag. Online och fysiskt också, eller hur? Ja. Ja. Så du får berätta lite mer om dig själv sen. Det är så skönt att vi har event igen. Vi har varit på sparlåga lite av lite olika anledningar faktiskt. Men återigen så har vi kommit igång och det kommer bli till hösten också som vanligt. Och vad inte många vet är att faktiskt vi bjuder på lunch också. Så alla delar ska få sitt, lite kunskap, lite hjärta och kärlek eftersom det jag har både patienter och gamla patienter här och så det blir liksom en träffpunkt också. Och det tycker jag är helt fantastiskt. Jag blir bara glad när jag ser det. Så jag blir tårögd faktiskt. Men jag skulle vilja säga det, om ni inte har den boken 90 dagar av tillfrisknande så kan ni köpa den till extrapris kan man säga. 129 kronor och det är självkostnadspris i stort sett. Och sen är det någonting annat jag är väldigt stolt över. Anna och jag och Maria och sen Emma som jobbar här tidigare har gjort någonting som workbooken, äntligen är den klar. När jag började i branschen så hade vi workbook när jag jobbade uppe i Stockholm och på andra ställen. Eller då hade vi, det var 20-30 sidor. Så det var det, och jag plockade ihop allt det där när jag startade företaget för ett tag sedan. Då för 12, 13, 14 år sedan snart eller något sånt. Och då hade jag det, liksom, det var det som var starten till det här, att vi plockade ihop arbetsuppgifter. En del i det gamla tyckte jag inte passa. Och vi har också skrivit om texterna, även de som Emma var med och gjorde, så vi har liksom ändrat på mycket. Och från de 20-30 sidorna så är det ett dokument nu på 132 sidor som alla som kommer till behandling får. Och så att även om ni inte gör alla uppgifterna som patienter, våra patienter gör inte allt, men däremot så kan man ju ta med sig hem och göra dem ändå. Och för att förkovra sig tillfrisknande och sådär. Är ni med? Så jag är så glad, äntligen! Och det har tagit sen vi började. Ja. Tack så mycket.
Kan man köpa den också?
Nej, den får man inte köpa. Då måste man bli patient först. Faktiskt, det är så. Så vi har copyright och så.
Och få skaffa mig ett riktigt beroende också.
Ja, precis. Det finns även uppgifter för medberoende kan jag också använda den.
Ja, jag får äta mer.
Ja.
Får man komma då?
Ja, precis. Nu får jag med en varm applåd. Lotte, Lise Lotte.
Så jag är mycket dålig på svenska, så I was told to present this in English, and so I can translate anything you want. So what I'm going to be talking to you about is fatty liver while you enjoy your lunch. And what I'd like to focus on is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is actually the most common liver disease in the world. And in several countries at the moment, this is the main cause for liver transplant. So it can be potentially serious, but in most patients, it isn't. So it's very important that we know the difference. And I'm not going to drone on about myself, but I'm just going to say that I'm from Hvidovre Hospital in Copenhagen, and so I work at uni also. Now, so this here is a healthy looking liver, and I think many of you have seen it when you've gone shopping in ICA or whatever. It's just when you make your liver pate, you want a nice brownish, soft liver. This liver can become fatty, which is also what some people love to eat, which is foie gras, which is just accumulation of fat in the liver. And in some people, this accumulation can turn into inflammation and scar tissue. And eventually you get cirrhosis of the liver, which is here to the right. And so what is a liver with cirrhosis? That is a liver that can work for a while, but increasingly it becomes dysfunctional, and so the body loses its main factory, because this is what a liver does. It's located here, and it's about 1.5 kilograms, and it produces things and it detoxifies things. And one of the things that it does detoxify is alcohol. And this is one of the reasons why alcohol is also associated with fatty liver, as many of you probably know. And from what much of I'm going to tell you about, it's pretty much the same if you have alcoholic or non-alcoholic fatty liver. Some people have both, and this is not a good condition because this will progress much faster than if you only have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So this next slide, I'm just going to show you some of the things that the liver does. So it helps you detoxify both what you eat, like medication, alcohol, and obviously also different drugs. And it helps you store things. So it's the factory is also storing sugars for you to use later, fats to use later, so that it can it creates a level of energy in your body. So this level is disrupted when the liver doesn't work. It also produces bile, which is the green stuff in our gallbladder, which is what we need for digestion and what we need to absorb vitamins, etc. So as you can see, it's very important. And one especially important thing is the immune deficiency, which you can get if you've got severe liver disease. So they get infections, repeated infections, and this is quite a problem. And now, when I show you all of these things and we talk about liver disease, I'd like to mention just stigma, because there's a lot of people who think that you know by looking at a person whether they have liver disease, and you probably all in your head have an idea of somebody sitting on a bench, yellow, frail, etc. So I'm going to show you one of my absolute favorite patients, and her name is Nadja, and she's pretty cool. She's well educated, she knows a lot about her disease, and she, for some reason, partly lifestyle and partly genetics, she developed fatty liver disease, and she became one of my patients. And I wouldn't know from looking at her that she's got fatty liver. You see, so that's pretty important. And also, we know that the liver doesn't have any nerve endings, so you can't feel it in the beginning. So there are very, very few symptoms, if any. Some people feel a little bit more tired than normal, and so when do you react to that? When do you ask your doctor, is this right? Am I supposed to be this tired? And what they're going to say, oh, you're a busy midwife, you've got so many kids. Listen, it's normal to be tired. So this is a major issue with fatty liver disease. So the disease progresses in different stages. So in the beginning, you just have steatosis, which is what we call fat in the liver. And if you've got more than 5%, we've heard the clinicians say that this is a disease. This fat can make the liver inflamed and eventually increasing the amount of scar tissue, and you develop cirrhosis in the end. And I'm going to show you some of the biopsies. So that this is the tissue from the liver that we collected. And so here you see this is a nice normal looking liver with the architecture here, and all the white stuff, sort of like candle wax, it looks a little bit like that, and this is fat in the liver. So it's big and it's a lot paler. So if you just think of the foie gras compared to the normal liver pate, that's exactly the same difference that we can tell just by looking at the liver. And then, oh my God, the slides. So there's, you can get specific types of inflammation in the liver, and you get cells that swell up, and we call it ballooning because they've ballooned up to this thing, and this is cell death. So the cells die inside the liver eventually, and you can end up with fibrosis, which is scar tissue, and that's all this stuff. And so this makes the liver hard so that the blood can't flow through it, and also it disturbs the function. So how many people around the world have it? So any guess? What would you think? Would you think 10%, 25%, 50%? 50?
25.
Yeah. In some areas it is actually as high as 50, but mostly it's around 25. But as you can see, there's considerable differences around the globe. And you might think, you all think, oh, Africa, oh, it's because they don't eat. But it's actually genetics. And this is also why people from here, they have an increased risk of fatty liver as well. And we're pretty much on a sort of medium level. And so people with genetics from here, around Middle East, they have an increased risk of fatty liver, and they also have an increased risk of developing scar tissue. So this is a great concern. And there are some new drugs that are being developed based on differences in genetics, but for now, there's nothing we can do about it, but just be more aware when we see people from specific areas around the world, because they have such a high risk of becoming ill. So, what is it, and is this just isolated? Because this is a disease that mainly develops in people with overweight or obesity, and it also is associated with type 2 diabetes, so that's the non-insulin dependent, and then also it increases the risk of heart failure, and it's got lots of other different associations, and this is what we call the metabolic syndrome. These are all illnesses that you can get, we think, from beginning with being overweight, and especially around the waist. So these are all the people with the apple shape, as you've heard many times probably. So apple is a lot worse than pear shaped because of all the fat inside the abdomen. Because if you've got fat in the tummy, the blood can't reach all the way into all the fat tissue. So that creates a little bit of inflammation, and then you get insulin resistance, so you can't use the insulin that you need to get the sugar out into the tissue, which is the way the body's supposed to work. And so when that happens, you get increasing risks of all of these diseases. So some people have everything, and some people have nothing, and you can't exactly correlate it with the degree of excess weight, but we do know that extreme obesity does increase the risk on average. But still, I have patients come in to see me and they say, oh, I must have this fatty liver disease that I've seen you talk about, and they don't, even though they're very large. And other people, they say, well, look at me, I've got a BMI, it's just this much, too much, so why am I this sick? And that's genetics. So this is to show you that it takes a long time for this disease to develop. So there's 4 stages of scar tissue. And stage 4 is the cirrhosis, that's the hard liver that you saw on my first slide. And normally it takes around 7-10 years for each stage. So if you find out early, it's a good time to prevent. You've got lots of time to change your lifestyle and to make sure that the disease is controlled. But there are few people where things develop very rapidly, and we're still not really sure which ones that is. So we're doing a lot of studies and clinical research to find out. But for now, we actually, I think, need a lot more knowledge. And so this is a graph showing survival in people with liver disease. So this is stage. Oh, I'll try to do it. But no, then. Anyway, so if you've got the severe liver disease, you have. Sorry. No. Yeah, of course. I'll just talk without the slides then. So if you've got really severe liver disease, then you've got a worse survival than if you've got the earlier stages. So the good news is anyone who has mild fatty liver disease, it's potentially reversible and it doesn't affect your survival compared to if you are discovered in the later stages. So what I was going to talk to you about is I will give you an example, and what can we learn from examples? It's just to generalize to other situations. One patient that I did have, she was called Myra, and she was in her mid-40s. And I'm fine without the slides, honest. She went to her GP and said she felt a little bit tired. She was a busy mom, but she was very insistent, so her GP did some screening blood tests, and she had elevated liver enzymes. So the liver blood tests were wrong. And he said to her, well, Myra, you are large. You're overweight, and I'm sure it's just fatty liver. There's no need to do anything about it other than go home and get a control of your life, and you'll be fine. But she wasn't having none of that. She said, when she spoke to me later, she said, I've tried that for many, many years now. It's not something that I'm just going to do without any help. And second, I want proper testing. So she Googled me, found me online, wrote to me, and says, hello, I think I've got this thing you call non-alcoholic fatty liver, and I think I need a biopsy because I feel there's something wrong. So obviously I was very curious to meet her, and it actually turned out that she was in stage 2 of the scar tissue. And so after she came to see me, she actually developed type 2 diabetes, and we started treatment for that, and she had counseling, and she lost weight, and she's doing much better. But still, she was quite upset because she said, so why did I have to make my own diagnosis? Why couldn't the doctor tell what's wrong with this system? This is a stupid healthcare system where the patients have to make their own diagnosis. And I think I have to say that I agree with her, but there's several reasons why. So one is the lack of awareness. And so many doctors still believe that fatty liver is completely benign, nothing happens, and B, I think maybe some of you have heard this before, but it's this, why doesn't she just eat less and exercise more? Why doesn't he just stop drinking? What's the problem? What's the issue? And I have to admit there's no better treatment that I can give them that can beat stopping alcohol and eating too much. But it's just not that easy. So this message, just simply giving this message to people for a lot of patients is not going to be enough. So there's that, there's the awareness, and then there's the tests. So the normal blood tests that we do, we look for specific markers of liver injury. But unfortunately, just for this particular disease, it's just as bad as flipping a coin, because you can have very, very high numbers and have a very mild liver disease. And you can also have completely normal blood tests, and if you just use the normal ones, and still have severe liver disease. So you don't want to overlook that. So there's new tests being developed, and one is actually it's amalgamation of different tests that we already know, but we found out that when we put them into a formula, it will give us a very nice idea of the degree of fibrosis, which was the scar tissue, which was what I was showing you was the most important thing. And so you may ask me, so why, Lotte, why they can just do that? Is it expensive? No, it's very cheap actually. It's in Denmark, it's 12 kroner, so not a lot of money, but they don't know it, they're not used to it, and you know about habits and remembering new things and implementing new things. And so I've done a lot of work locally with some of my colleagues trying to talk to people about this particular test. It's called FIB4 because there's 4 things included in the formula. And so I say, well, it's only 12 kroner, so why don't you just do it? And they say, okay, yeah, well, it's 12 kroner times how many? So it's 25% of the population. That's 12 kroner times 25%. So that's 1 million. So that's 12 million. Are you kidding? So who's going to pay for that? And I say, well, yeah. Well, that's just healthcare. The problem with healthcare is often it costs a lot of money to prevent disease, because you have to treat a lot of people that wouldn't eventually become ill. So
in the long run, it's cheap.
Well,
so in the long run, it's cheap.
Yeah, well, that depends what you put in the calculation and which box you take the money from.
Yeah.
Because then there's the council, or is it primary sector who has to pay for it, or is it me who has to pay for it? And also, what about all of these extra tests? It's not only them, but it's also, so the patient may have elevated numbers, and then they have to come see me. And then I have to do additional tests. And I'm working anyway, but then there's other people that I can't see. So I can't see people with viral liver disease, or sometimes I don't have time to even see people with alcoholic liver disease, because all the non-alcoholic liver diseases come to me. So where's that? Are they going to employ a second professor? It's not so easy. So it's the calculation is quite difficult. Yeah.
How about the patient pay themselves? I mean, it's nothing.
Yeah. So some people do that. And so they go for general checks and checkups, and they have liver scans, and but it's just for me, it's a valid point, but I think equality of care is very important. So anyone should be able to get the same high standard treatment and diagnosis in our society, I think. So, yeah, people are increasingly doing that, and I would just say, just to include this information, that you should just be aware that when you do a general health check, but you feel fine, sometimes there's something called accidental findings. So they'll find a little cyst on the liver that doesn't mean anything, but then the doctor says, oh, it's probably nothing. I'll just send you to a specialist for a specialized scan very quickly. No worries. We can't exclude completely that it might be something dangerous. And then you worry. And then you go to hospital and you take up time for something that wasn't, because we do have a very quick turnaround for these cases, but then nearly never anything bad. So the patient has worried for a long time, and the healthcare system also has to deal with it. And sometimes it's something that we can't do anything about anyway. Yeah?
But you have to do a biopsy to confirm it, isn't it? Or is the test, the top 12 common test enough?
Yeah. So, I can, with this Big 4 test, if I do that one and it's normal, then I'm 90% sure that the patient is fine. There's no significant scar tissue. If it's very high, the value is very high, then I'm pretty sure that the patient is very poorly and needs to come see me right away. If it's in the grey zone area, then normally what we advise is for people to get counselling for lifestyle changes, and then we check it again. And if that doesn't work, they have to come see me, and I do a specialised scan, which is like an ultrasound, but we put acoustic waves through the liver to sort of see how much it blubbers, so how stiff it is. And so that gives us a very good indication of whether there's advanced scar tissue. So it's something that we need to sort of do something about. And if that's the case, then I do a biopsy, because that's the only way that I'll know. Because so far, and we're doing a lot of research at the moment, but there's no blood test that can tell me if a person has this for sure or not. And obviously, if people come in with very severe liver disease and signs of liver disease, then I may not have to do a biopsy, because I'll know just from looking at a person. And so that's what I thought I was going to end with, because just to tell you some of the symptoms of severe liver disease. So one is actually vomiting blood, because the blood vessels become enlarged because they can't get through that hard, stiff liver, and so they can burst and bleed. And I know anesthesiology is here, so you'll know that that's just and very dangerous. But if they find it in time, I now have treatments that I can give people so that it doesn't bleed. So this is why it's so important to find people before this happens. Also, you can get fluid in your tummy, something we call ascites, and you need medication for that, or we put a little tube in and empty it out. It's not very nice. And then you can get something called, we call it liver coma, but it's not always as bad as that. So, but you can just become confused, disoriented, lack of focus, concentration, and sleep issues. And that's also, to some extent, treatable. And we would like to treat people before it becomes that bad. If it does become that bad, sometimes what we can do, if the patient is fit enough, we can give them a new liver. But that also comes with a lot of medication and checkups after. So it's a lot better to avoid. And
Lotte, can I ask some questions?
Yeah, of course.
Because you can have cirrhosis part of the liver, right? That are stiff. Is that true? They do use
Normally,
doctors
you
and-
just have cirrhosis in the entire liver.
Okay. So it's not a part that can be.
No,
No,
but
okay.
but you can remove part of the liver and it will grow back. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And another question. I see when I saw the map and everything, it's about what you eat.
Yeah.
So sugar is one of the. I know.
Well, I will say something. I know you're going to disagree, but I'll say whatever works for that particular patient. But you need to lose weight. And how much? So if you've only got fat and inflammation, you need just 5 to 10% of your body weight. So a lot of people, they come in, they're 130 kilograms, and they say, oh, I want to be 70. And I say, that's fine, but you don't have to, just because of your liver, because I'm talking for their liver that day. And so if you've got scar tissue, then you probably want 15%. But the trick is you have to keep it down. And so it's a lot easier to just lose weight and gain weight again after. And yo-yo dieting is not a good thing.
So do you talk about nutrition?
Yes, we talk about nutrition, and we're very flexible, because some people say this keto diet works really well for me, and sometimes their cholesterol will go through the roof, and we'll say, well, we're going to have to find something out. But for some people that works, and there's some studies showing that it can work in the short run at least. And then there's other diets, and we try to tailor it. But I think for secondary sector, we can't do a nice of a follow-up as people in the primary sector. And for alcohol, that's a whole nother issue. I can refer people, I can suggest where to go, but I can't give I can talk to people about it, but I can't give them the support they need. And also, we've got so many drugs, and I think many of you may have heard of this Wegovy needle. Kim Kardashian's taking it, a lot of people are taking it, it's very trendy. And does it work? Yes. It's a GLP-1 receptor agonist, So it's something we use for diabetes. It's a hormone that's made in the gut. And it regulates your appetite, both by making sure that the stomach doesn't empty as quickly. So this is why some people also get very bad nausea from the pill, from the injection. And also it works centrally, so it works to modify your cravings for food, but also for alcohol. Does it work when you don't take it anymore? No. It's just like any other drug. The minute you start taking it, you go back up in weight.
May I ask you a question? Can medication give you also fatty liver, for example?
Yeah.
Because I have a knowledge that I have high pressure, and I stopped because I was gaining so much weight, and I went down 6 kilos just like that. Now I have to take double doses, and I immediately, and you know, if you look like you are pregnant, because it always here, but that must also be an effect of, and you gain weight. I mean, also depressive.
Antidepressants can make you gain weight, definitely, for sure. It's very, very rare that you're able to see an enlarged liver, even though it's bigger than normal. Then there's the gut in front, etc. So normally, if you feel that you're bloating, it's probably gas. But I mean, I wouldn't know for sure.
But it doesn't affect the liver.
Some drugs do.
It does, yeah.
But a lot of drugs, most drugs don't have any effect.
Have you seen any kind that you more than others from medication?
Yeah, prednisolone.
Huh?
Yeah, corticosteroids, prednisolone.
Yeah.
So hormones that you get for allergies and for different autoimmune disease.
So natural medicines are better than
No,
artificial?
no, I'm sorry. I mean, there's a lot of people who like to recommend milk thistle, and we've tested it, and I mean, it doesn't do anything bad for you, but it doesn't really, it makes the enzymes go down, but it's nothing you feel better about. So, but, and also, what I'm a little bit concerned about is that just because you can buy it at any healthcare store doesn't mean that it's healthy. It should be tested,
Yeah.
and it's not. That's the problem with some drugs. And I've seen, actually, there's something called drug-induced liver injury, which can be very dangerous. And people come in, I had this lady come in, and her grandma gave her some herbs from China. She took them, her metabolism just went, and she was completely yellow. And oh, hello, thank you, grandma.
Yeah.
And so that, and
I think you have to know what you're doing.
You
So
have
I'm thinking in France and Spain and Germany, it's very much secondary that they take homeopathic medicine for us.
oh, homeopathy, I don't mind because there's nothing really in it. So yeah.
I'm thinking about the future. Many young people today have obesity.
Yeah.
Our grown-up children. I have one daughter, and she's really fat. And you say at obesity, 63% get this.
Yep.
Yes. What are the healthy doing to? I know obesity is. Today it's a lot in young children also, from growing up and up, and they eat, drink a lot of Coca-Cola, eat sweets and
Sugary drinks.
Yes, yes. What will we do? It must, in the future, we must have many more fatty livers.
That's such a good point, and that was actually one of my slides, because we know projected this number is just going to increase and increase and increase.
Yeah.
So what are we doing about it? Not enough. We're trying to treat families, so because the children are being in the same environment as the parents.
Yes, yes, you see no family.
And it's all about taxes, extra taxes on sugars and stuff. But I mean, there's always an opposition, because they say, the government can't decide what I eat.
No.
And so there's freedom of choice. So there's that. I will tell you one thing that I say is not the answer. It's medication. Yeah.
How is artificial sweetening for the liver?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very
So, well, there are studies showing that if you take a lot of artificial sweetener, then your craving towards sugar is higher. But the bias control, so I don't know if we can know for sure. Definitely one thing that I can say, it's not dangerous. That's been disproven several times, and a lot of you can just guess who funded that research, showing that it's dangerous, you can get blah blah blah. But that's been disproven so many times, so that's not a problem. You can eat your Diet Coke. I know I do.
I stopped doing it.
Yeah.
On one of your first slides, you said that the liver has a role in the immune system.
Can you speak louder, please?
Yeah.
You had, on one of your first slides, you mentioned that the liver has a role in the immune system.
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Because I'm
Yeah.
not aware of it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of antibodies that are produced by help of the liver, from proteins from the liver, and then there's also the macrophages, and the liver is also it sort of filters the blood that comes from the intestine. So this is one of the things that you see when people have a severe liver disease. There's two things. or three things actually. There's this problem with the production of immune antibodies and macrophages, immune cells that can eat different bacteria, and then the bowel can become leaky, so you have something called leaky gut, so the bacteria from the bowel would just go into the blood flow, and because the liver is so stiff, the body makes a new blood vessel sometimes to go around the liver because it can't get through it, and so this just goes up to the head, and then you can get severe infections, and you can get this liver coma that I was talking about. Yeah.
When I go to my family doctor once a year, they normally takes in blood test, also test the liver.
Yeah.
Yes. Which of them, is there any of the liver tests that shows? I know alcoholic ALP and avsatt ALAT, yes.
Yeah.
But it's a special blood test you can say to your doctor, can I also get this one?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me, which of them is the
So-
most necessary?
The doctor can calculate it for himself or herself, or you can ask for it, and it's called FIB4. So fibrosis 4 index, which is the ALAT,
Yes, I know.
thrombocytokine,
Yes, I know them. Yes.
and your age. So that goes into a formula, and then you estimate whether you've got an increased risk of, and that's actually a very good idea to have that done. And also, one thing that I was going to say is that I've been talking, doom and gloom, etc. But did you know that back in the old days, we thought once you've got severe liver disease, once you've got cirrhosis, for drinking alcohol or something else, then that's it. The liver's just kaput, nothing we can do about it. But many people who stop drinking around the globe have actually experienced that this can improve, even this. So this situation can improve. So you can have a very bad liver disease to getting to a lot better stage. And in very few cases, and I have seen this, it can be reversed so that the scar tissue goes away and the liver becomes more normal.
I think we stop there with a lot of hope, actually.
Tack Lotte, fantastiskt att höra. Klart och tydligt vad som gäller egentligen. Och hoppas att ni har fått någonting med er från det här idag. Så ni får fortsätta enjoy the coffee. Och så stoppar vi där idag.
Ja.
Så tack så mycket. Ge Lotte en applåd till tycker jag.